Torah, Megillah Esther, page 192, 4 lines to the end of the first column. Okay, the Alter Rebbe was, this beginning of the Maimed, the Alter Rebbe discussed like what was so special about Matan Torah? Why was it that Purim, they finally accepted what happened in Matan Torah? What happened, why the beginning and the end there? Anyway, so he starts explaining, but we need to understand what did Matan Torah do if Avraham Avinu kept the whole Torah. So the Alter Rebbe started explaining Avraham Avinu's Aveda was Halach and Neseh Negba. Avraham Avinu had Ratzav V'Shev, this longing and this returning, and his Aveda was super great. And he had his beinuness into the greatness of Hashem, and the Neshama wanted to leave the body, and then he understood. But the problem is, not everybody is that great. So, in order to create the concept of Ratzav V'Shev, this longing to Hashem, the concept of Neshama wanting to get out of his body, connecting to Hashem, and coming back, that's why Hashem gave us Torah mitzvahs. So he gave us positive mitzvahs, meaning you do a positive mitzvah because you love Hashem, you want to connect yourself to Hashem. That's Ratzu. Laisasa means more returning, to be in the world, that the world should be a vessel for that particular thing. Okay, that's what we're up to now. And he said that's the concept of Nasa v'Nishma. Nasa is doing the mitzvahs, and Nishma comes the word Vayeshama Shol Esa'am. He gathered the nation together, meaning that he gathered all the sparks of Kedusha. This is what we're up to now. Oh, and the last thing he said was in order for fire to stay down here, it has to have a wick and the fuel, and if not, it leaves right away. Coming back means Hashem wants us not to leave the body and the neshama die. He wants us, the neshama, to be in the body, in the world, to bring down Kedusha into the world.
So we go to connect for what?
To bring godliness into the world. That's what Hashem wanted. That's why the Gemara says in Amaretz, you pick it up, it says, the Amaretz cannot be a chassid. Why can Amaretz not be a chassid? Chassid ubal midas so ava. Chassid is the level of ava, which is the level of od. Ki based pa'amim od, because the word od, aleph of reish, is 207. Double 207 is the numerical value of the word v'ahavta. Meaning, she'ev sheli is gili or ava. There cannot be this revelation of ava, kim she'ev b'chinas keli lamata. Then it must have a vessel down here. She is Paul by that it should function through. Or b'chinas keli zez aydei Torah mitzvahs. In other words, like this: Chassid means the person has a strong love to Hashem. Okay, Chassid by definition is one who doesn't think about themselves, only thinks about somebody else or Hashem. That's what the Gemara defines the level of a Chassid. The Gemara says, when you cut your nails, if you throw them on the ground, you're a rasha. Because maybe a pregnant woman will step over it and she'll miscarry. Whatever. Whatever that means. And then the Gemara says, Kaivram, if you bury them, you're a tzaddik. If you burn them, then you're a chassid, which is even greater than the tzaddik. So it's flushing the toilet is burying. So Taisus in the Gemara over there, and that says that what's this whole thing of chassid? He says because there's another Gemara that says what's the difference if you burn the nails and bury them? Bury them means the nails are still existing; they're just buried. Burning means they're not there anymore. So the chances of a woman stepping over the nails is much less if you burn them than if you bury them. Okay, because they're not existent anymore. So Taisa says, even though another Gemara says if you burn a part of your body, it's detrimental to yourself. Nevertheless, a chassid is willing to damage themselves a little bit to be detrimental in order not to hurt another person. That means the definition of a chassid is one who goes selfless. He doesn't even care about themselves. It's a chassid represents avat Hashem. He has love to Hashem in such an extent, but it needs a vessel. If you're a ma'aretz and you don't know how to learn, you don't know how to do Torah mitzvahs, how could you be a chassid? Can't be a chassid. Masha'en kein ha'ma'aretz, second column. A ma'aretz who doesn't have this keli. V'gam ik and ha'gerim lam shachas ein tzal baruch hu. She'em islabish b'Torah mitzvahs. And also what's the main cause that causes Elokus to come down in Torah mitzvahs, which is Ant Chakim le b'Chochma Yediyah, but Hashem his Chochma is way beyond our level of Chochma. Hu Ikir Torah v'asiyas mitzvahs atzma. That is the learning Torah and the doing of mitzvahs, which is the Keli Kadma La'od, which is the Keli, which is even higher than the Od, B'shar Shel Malkuch Cheitzva, where it came from. If you have Od and Keli, okay, the vessel is lower than the Od. But that means in the origin, it's even greater. So in order to bring down Torah mitzvahs, you need the Keli for it. Like it says in somewhere else in the pasuk, "Ve'ela melachim b'shem molchu be'eretz Adam, lifnei melach melech lifnei b'nei Yisrael." Those are at the end of Parshas Vayishlach. It enumerates the 8 kings that ruled in Edom before there was a Jewish king. And over there it says, "Vayimlech vayamas" represents the levels of Elam Ateu and so on. So over there, even though the Malachim, the kings of Edom, are lower than the Jewish kings, but nevertheless, they come from a high Teu, is higher than Tikkun. And that's where he says, that the source of food from the inanimate plant and animal is like we learned in all those Maimarim. How could we sustain ourselves from something lower than us? The answer is in source, it's really higher. Therefore, the primary bringing down of Elokus down here in the world is only by making a vessel of Torah mitzvahs. You have the action of the mitzvahs. In other words, you can have a pair of tefillin on the table, and you can think every halachic, kabbalistic, mystical meaning of the tefillin, okay? But you don't put it on. I'm not saying it's worthless. You had some good thoughts, but you didn't do the mitzvah. You didn't bring down the kedusha. You can't say Hashem kedusha b'mitzvah v'tzivanu. Now, if you did, it's a brach and vein. It's an avein if you do that. Okay? So therefore, in order to have this, why did Hashem give us Torah mitzvahs? Because Torah mitzvahs is the keli, the mitzvahs are the keli to be able to bring down kedusha. Avraham Avinu's greatness was able to do it without Torah mitzvahs. Nowadays, we're not that great. So we need, in order to have bring kedusha down here in the physical world, like it's the carboni lachmi liishai, the bread that keeps the neshama in the body. What?
How come this concept is accepted for korban? We don't do korban, we just read it. And it has to.
There's spiritual korbanos.
So we do a spiritual.
Spiritual korban means you take a nefesh habamis, the Yetzer Hara, and we burn it, and in other words, we get rid of it. That in order, and instead of wanting a world, we want Hashem. There's a whole process that Rabbi explains in my Morim. In order to bring a korban, you have to do 4 processes. First of all, you have to make sure there was no blemish on the animal. You have to do bedikas mum, because a blemished animal you're not allowed to bring as a korban. So first they did checking, make sure there's no mum. Then the second thing they did was shchita. Then they zrika sadam. Then they squirted the blood on the mizbeach, and then they put the animal on the mizbeach. There's 4 processes of a korban. So the Rebbe explains each one in Avedus Hashem. You have to. The first thing you need to know is you need to know who you are. Like it says, there's a song in Yiddish. I developed as a schmaler brick und the Iker nicht zu naden sich. Meaning, the world is a narrow bridge, and the main thing is not to fool yourself. The worst thing a person could do is to fool themselves. Now, fooling themselves means I think I'm better than I am, or to think I'm less than I am. Both ways are no good. So you have to check into, where you're at in the world. What exactly where you're at, without the masks of bribery and sheikhad and self-love and all that. To sit down and really know. Then you have to do shchita. What is shchita? Shchita, the animal's still here. You just take out the life of the animal. You don't destroy the animal. Shchita means the animal has life. Now I shechted it, doesn't have life. Then the third problem, the Rebbe explains it in great length. But then you have Zrika Saddam. You take the life of the Nefesh Habamis and you sprinkle it on the Mizbeach of Hashem. You take the vitality of Nefesh Habamis and you bring it to Kedusha. And the last thing is you take the Nefesh Habamis itself and makriv it becomes consumed in the fire of godliness. So that's the Aved of Kabbanis. We have a Kabbalah. We say it, but why do we say it? Because it should be considered as if we did it. That's what we say in davening, by the way. It should be considered that is as if I brought the carbon. Because Torah mitzvahs is eternal. Okay, if there's no Beis HaMikdash, so what with all those mitzvahs are not eternal? They are eternal, but not in a physical sense, in a spiritual sense. But that's why you need all these kelim. L'chein ikam tolib b'chinas kelim through ma'isa mitzvahs. Nimshach or mislabish, when the comes down. They'll gam kein v'lei amar the chassid she'ev sheliyatzam shacha erdo ava momayla. You cannot bring down the kedusha from above. Kimaydei kelim shema Torah v'mitzvah. You need to have Torah mitzvahs. So if you're an Amaretz and illiterate, that you don't know Torah mitzvahs. By the way, an Amaretz doesn't mean a person who's an illiterate. That's a board. Amaretz means Rashi and Chumash, by the way, interestingly, Chassidus brings this down. Rashi and Chumash says, Amaretz, it says, Acheri Yeshvei Haaretz, also in Vayishlach, I believe. It says over there that they were so great in agriculture, they used to taste the ground, the dirt, to know what's good to plant there. And nowadays we have a lot more knowledge, but they had more brains. So Yeshvi Haaretz, Am Haaretz, actually means an intelligent person. Except he's not Torah knowledgeable. A board is a goylem, a board. Even in English there's a word board. Am Haaretz doesn't mean an illiterate. It means an illiterate in Torah mitzvahs. He didn't learn Torah mitzvahs. So how could you bring down Kedusha if you don't know how to do the mitzvah, if you don't know what the mitzvah is, how to do it? If you do the mitzvah the wrong way, you don't bring down the Kedusha. In order to purify oneself, especially in time of the Beis HaMikdash, where they're a tummy, so a mikveh has to be 40 sa. If a mikveh had 39.999999 sa of water, it was not a kosher mikveh. So if somebody tabled in that water, they were still tummy. So if they went into the Beis HaMikdash, they would die. It was capital punishment. Or if they would eat korbanos, that they were not allowed to eat because they were tummy. So the question would point, well, what's the big deal? That it has to be, you have to do it right. Because it has to be the proper keli. The keli has to be the right keli for the thing. So he said, "V'zeh Yuvan, shalapam amatzin shenachshav ma'alas Avram Gedela, shekim kol ha'Torah, like it says v'yishma mishmarti, ulapam amatzinu shenachshav le'ligarin shalei zachal ha'Torah." Therefore, he says we find in Chazal contradictory things. Some places said, "Look how great Avram Avinu was; he kept Torah," and other places said, "What? He didn't have Torah." There's a pasuk in Shir Hashim, Shemen Turak Shmecha. So the Medrash says, the mitzvahs that the Aves did, Reiches Hayu, was only Reach. What does that mean? You walk into a perfume store, you'll walk out smelling from perfume, but you didn't put the perfume on you. It's only the smell of the perfume. You put on the actual perfume, then you have it. The Aves Torah mitzvahs, it was like reiches, it was only like reach. It's only, but Shem and Turak Shmecha, we got the actual oil through Torah mitzvahs. So he says, how could it be? Sometimes it says the greatness of Avraham Avinu that he kept Torah. And other place says he wasn't so great because he didn't have Torah mitzvahs. He says, Shneim emes. Both are true. Why? Ki mitzad sheresh nishmasa haya gabor l'maylev. As far as neshama is concerned, it was so great that nishmasa became a merkava. And it keli la'era Torah v'ayin tzaf and nimshach mislabish b'Torah. In other words, like this. The Medrash says, and Chassidus and the Zohar, they elaborate a lot on this. It says when Avraham Avinu was fighting with Hashem Batzdaim. So then the pasuk finishes, Vayal me'olav Elokim. Hashem went off him. Vayal me'olav Elokim. So it's a funny expression when God was on him and he went off him. So the Medrash says, Ha'avis heinein merkava. The others are like the chariot, the horse. Okay? The others were like the horse. Hashem is sitting on them. The horse goes where the rider leads it. The others, they were so great, the neshama was a keli talukus. Okay? So they didn't need Torah mitzvahs. We cannot be a merkava to Hashem without Torah mitzvahs. Because we're not that great. So if we don't do Torah mitzvahs, he can be a Batal Tashem. So from one side we say Avraham Avinu was so great he didn't need mitzvahs to do it. And he says, Avram Ever Ma Ever Vekeli. Avram is Ever Ma. Avram was an Ever, a limb of Hashem. He was the Keli. I will call a mitzvahs atzma, which amadreg esoyenis yesem milifnei hamelech, which is even connected to the essence of Hashem. Adayin le'nitnu b'mei Avram. That wasn't given in the days of Avram. Okay, so now the Rebbe asks, what did Matan Torah accomplish? Avram Avinu was able to be a merkava to Hashem without mitzvahs, without the physical mitzvahs. We need the physical mitzvahs of Matan Torah. Okay, that's the gist of what we learned until now. But concerning this, Hamshacha bringing Elukus down into the world, it says, Yavil Levush Malchus. Okay, now everything in the Megillah is super holy. Okay? It's such a level of Esther. In fact, Chassidus says, it's called Megillah Esther. Why isn't it called Megillah Mordechai? Or at least Megillah Mordechai Esther? It's called Megillah Esther. So simple, the reason is because Esther was the one that fought with the Anshe Knesset Agedela, Kisfun V'Ladeiris. She was the one that made the Anshe Knesset Agedela make it one of the books of Tanakh, of Suvim. But why is it called Megillah Esther in a deeper sense? Because Esther is a Nechi Hastir Asteponai. The Gemara asks, in the Megillah, the Gemara asks, where do we find Haman min HaTorah? Where do we find Mordechai in the Torah? Where do we find Esther min HaTorah? Okay? So it says in Mashal Haman, it says, what do you find? Hamin ha'etz. When Adam and Chava ate from the tree, Hashem said to me, Hamin ha'etz? Hamin is Muhammad. Where does it say Mordechai in the Torah? The Gemara says, it says in Pashas Kisis at the beginning, Mordoror. And Targum says, Mordechai. That's Mordechai. Where do we find Esther in the Torah? The Gemara says, Hanechi hastir astir panai. Not only is it one concealment, it's hastir as a double concealment. So in Esther is all the deepest things. Okay, everything, all the conversations with Haman and Achashverosh and Mordechai, everything is super. So when Achashverosh called in Haman came to him, he said, what do I do to a guy that I want to honor? So what did Haman say? Yavil levush malchus, bring a garments, v'sus ha'sherachav alav ha'melech, and the horse that the king rides on, and let that guy do it. He said also the crown that the king got angry about. Okay. So he says, ish. So what does that mean in a spiritual sense? Okay, very nice story. It happened. Take the horse, take the garments. Okay, but what does it mean? Kine levush malchus. What is levush malchus? The garment of royalty. That's Torah mitzvahs. Like it says, Eita erka salma. He should spread out the light like a dress. Okay, We know mitzvahs are called garments, right? Torah is called food because you digest it internally, and the mitzvahs are called garments. It's encompassing. So Torah mitzvahs are called levush malchus, the garments of Hashem. Ve'ein ela Torah rais michochma nafkes. And od is Torah, like it says ner mitzvah, but Torah od. So Torah is od. V'amitzvahs nikra levushim shebehem melubash chesed raya yamina. That the kedusha, the levels of kedusha, is like chesed raya yamina. Chesed is the right hand of Hashem. So when you do mitzvahs, it's ahava, which is chesed. So it's the right hand of Hashem. In other words, bringing down this garment of levush malchus, he says, she is slavish earning sabbatera mitzvahs, b'maisa mitzvah kiyumim b'peil mamish, is the level of trusus. How do you bring down levush malchus, meaning Torah and mitzvahs? Down here, that's the level of a sus. To the level of a horse. What's the horse? Because by Matan Torah, Pasuk says, not in Chumash, in Nach. Kisir keval susecha makveisecha. You're going to ride on the horse, your riders, meaning, makveisecha Yeshua. He says like this, Bir inyan zeh, how does sus, what's the spiritual level of a horse that brings down this level of Kedusha? So he says like this, sus is a gematria based pamim gimel, samach gimel. Sus is samach vav samach, right? So samach gimel is sus. Gimel, two gimels make a vav. V'hainu bechin is goy go. Hainu li is haidei ze bittul elav yizbarach betachlis. It has to be the complete level of bittul. Mitzvah anu yisad liba im yosem elav liba she'ein erein tzav she'el b'misha batul elav. Meaning like this. The horse represents bittul to the rider. The horse is batul to the rider. There's no opinion of its own.
Subservient.
It's subservient to the good. He's subservient to the master. He goes where he wants. That's the level of bittul. How do you bring down the od of Torah mitzvahs? Yavil levush malchus. It's only through the level of bittul, meaning doing Torah mitzvahs. Because the ultimate kedusha is brought down, the keli, to bring down the kedusha of Torah mitzvahs is only through bittul. Without bittul, halachically you can forgive. If I'm very haughty and I'm going to give tzedakah and publicize it to the world or tell everybody how great I am that I put on film, whatever, yeah, you did the mitzvah. Did you bring down the level of kedusha that should have been brought down? No, because how do you expect? In other words, Hashem only comes down where you let him in.
There is a room.
If you're full of yourself, then there's no room for God. That's why the Gemara says in Seita, about a haughty person. I can't coexist with him. He's so full of himself, there's no room for me. So what do you want me to do?
We're judged with our deeds, not with our intention. That's what distinguishes us.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, we said to bring it down ultimate level of Kedusha into the world and into ourselves is only through bittul. Because then we're bringing down God, because we want to bring down God.
Kavanah is not bittul.
It depends what the kavanah is.
It's skaf.
Kavanah is not a skaf, you're breaking evil. Kavanah is the intent, thinking, what am I accomplishing by doing the mitzvah? So simple kavanah is, I'm putting on tefillin because Hashem commanded me to put on tefillin. That's the simple halachic kavanah. The spiritual kavanah is, I'm doing this because now I'm becoming one with Hashem, and the only way I could become one with Hashem is when Hashem exists and I don't.
Well, there is something wrong to you, and somebody puts it on the side, says, this is wrong to you. I make a kavanah not to do it.
But you do it anyway?
No, you don't do it.
Okay, so you didn't do it, that's what counts.
Right. So,
If a guy has kavanah, I don't want to eat this tray for food, but I'm eating it anyway. I mean,
no, you're not eating. Of course you're not eating.
No.
You put it on the side.
so,
The first time.
what?